everybody. Boy, I certainly miss seeing you guys every day. I know we're all kind of chomping at the bit to get back to school, but since we're not able to do that yet, I'm going to run you through a quick experiment that you can do at home. Now, I'd love to have you do it along with me. So let's get started and look at our materials that we need to complete this experiment. And what I'm going to do is I'll show them to you in front of me, and then I'll give you a chance. You can pause the video, go get them, set it up in the kitchen. As you can see, welcome to my kitchen. We're doing this from my house. The first material thing that you're going to need is a jar. It needs to be as clear as possible. I don't have a completely clear jar. It could be a glass if it's just a glass. Like it could be anything that's clear enough because we're going to want to see into it to see what happens when we do our experiment. You're going to need a regular cup. It doesn't have to be clear. You're going to need a spoon to mix things up. You're going to need vegetable oil. Now, it doesn't have to be vegetable oil. It could be any oil that you have in your house. It could be olive oil, canola oil, whatever your parents use for cooking or something they might have around. And you're also going to need food coloring. So these little drops here are food coloring. I'm sure you'll have can find some somewhere in your house. So right now, we're just going to go over the materials list again written out, and I'm going to give you a chance to go get them for yourself. Okay, hopefully you have the materials you need. Now we're going to walk you through the procedure. So the amount of vegetable oil you're going to use is going to kind of depend on the size of the jar or the glass that you chose. You're going to look at it and you're going to want to fill up the vegetable oil about an inch or two at the top of that. So the jar should be filled enough should fill up with water, and then we're going to think about how much vegetable oil will go in there. For my jar, I'm going to use a half a cup of vegetable oil because that works with the jar I'm using. So first thing I'm going to do though is fill the jar with some water. Hot water, cold water, doesn't really matter, but that's a variable that if you have some time, if you want to do this experiment again, you can change and work with to see what kind of difference you might see with the type of water. Next, I'm going to take the vegetable oil. I'm going to fill up my half a cup. And I'm going to put it into this cup here. The next step is I'm going to take my food coloring, and you can use whatever colors of those that you have, and I'm going to put just a few drops of each color. So for me, I'm just going to put 3 drops of each color into it. And you can already see it's kind of cool. When you look at this, you'll notice that it doesn't, normally when you put food coloring, if you were to put it into water or if you were to put it into something, it would immediately dissipate into the water. But here in the oil, the food coloring just goes into drops, and that's because food coloring and oil are what's called an emulsion, which means they don't combine. So what you're going to do is, now that you have the big ones, you're going to stir it up really good. You're going to break these up and stir it up as good as you can, and what's going to happen is those big dots are going to become little dots. So the goal is to have a whole bunch of little dots in your vegetable oil. So right now we're going to start the scientific part of it. We're going to take a break, and I'm going to have you try to make a prediction based on, we're going to be dumping this oil into this water. So I want you to think about what do you think is going to happen and make a prediction. So we're going to kind of make a lab report from this. And the first part is what you're going to work on now, which is a prediction. And this sentence starter for you is I predict that, and then you can fill that in. For my K1, 2 kids, if you want to use pictures to show what you think is going to happen, or if there's an adult helping you, they could be your scribe. You can tell them what you want to write, or just try to write a sentence or two or a couple words. My 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, my prediction I expect to be a lot more complete. I expect reasons why you chose what you did and also what you're doing. So if you want right now, I suggest you take a pause and write out your prediction. Okay, now that we have our prediction, we're going to do our experiment. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and mine combined up a little bit while we were writing the prediction, and I'm going to put it into the water. So I'm going to pour it into the water to see what happens. And start making observations. So now that we've started the experiment, I want you to start observing what you see. And remember, this was what's called an emulsion. So water and oil do not mix. So there, the oil is going to stay at the top because, and we'll talk about that in a minute, but it's making an emulsion. So observe what you've got. Hopefully you didn't use as many dots. A few like dots might have made it a little bit, but you can see how cool it is because we're going to look at the different densities of oil, water, and the food coloring. If you want, you could stop the video now and keep observing what you're doing. The next step after this is going to be to write down what you observed. So under observation, you're going to write the word I observed, and you're going to tell about what you noticed. Tell me what you thought happened. You can also at that point maybe think a little bit about why, but the why is going to come more in your conclusion. So what did you see happening? What did it look like? Give me a lot of, things that make sure it's observation. So it can be based on your 5 senses. See, what you smelled, what you could touch. Think about what would have happened with that. Now that you've had your observations, it's time for a conclusion. Based on what you observed, what do you think happened and why? It says, based on what was observed, I conclude that, and I want you to write that out as well for your lab report. Some science terms that you're going to use or you can use, and some explanation for what happened, and what I want you to kind of research on your own a little bit to figure out is the concept of emulsion, which I talked about, which are 2 things that just don't combine. You can mix them together, but they never truly combine, and density. Now, density is why the oil and the water don't combine, and why the food coloring eventually goes into the water. So I'm going to give you a little bit of thought. I want you to think about that as you do this. Now, what I also would love to see you do is, since this is on a YouTube channel that I'm going to give a link out to, I'd love you to post your lab reports or information that you have in the comments below this video. I would also, if you take a video of what you do, it'd be great to see that kind of stuff. Let me just say I miss you guys. I hope to be doing some more of these experiments as the weeks go on. I would prefer more to do that at school with you, but if we have to keep doing it in my kitchen, I guess we'll just have to keep doing it in my kitchen. See you soon.